Let me ask you a question. When you think of preschool television, what exactly comes to mind? Probably bright colors, super repetitive songs, maybe a few basic life lessons about sharing your toys or learning your ABCs, right? But what if I told you that right now, one of the most profound, emotionally resonant pieces of media on television is literally a 7-minute cartoon about a family of Australian blue heelers? I know it sounds crazy. Can a cartoon about animated dogs actually teach us how to be better humans? It totally sounds like a stretch, but today we're going to unpack exactly how this seemingly simple children's show holds incredible emotional depth. We are talking about tackling deep-seated insecurities, perfectionism, and the absolutely exhausting reality of human comparison.
So, welcome to this explainer. Today we are exploring what I like to call the Trojan horse of animation. The brilliant creators behind the hit show Bluey have basically disguised these profound, heavy psychological truths inside incredibly colorful, bite-sized, and hilarious animation. On the surface, sure, it's a show meant to keep kids entertained. But once that episode starts, it sneaks right past our adult defenses and hits us right in the heart with lessons we didn't even realize we desperately needed to learn.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. Today we'll cover 1. More than a cartoon. 2. The trap of perfectionism. 3. Navigating sibling dynamics. 4. The parenting baby race. And finally, number 5. Running your own race.
All right, kicking things off with a Section 1, More Than a Cartoon, or how this is really a show built for two entirely different audiences.
Which brings us to Section 2, the trap of perfectionism, and how we go about overcoming it.
So, the absolute genius of this show is its dual-layered writing. It's speaking to kids and parents at the exact same time. Take the episode called Perfect, where Bluey is basically paralyzed trying to draw a flawless Father's Day card. Notice the stark contrast going on here. Bluey's internal standard dictates that her picture must be perfectly straight, absolutely no flaws whatsoever. But her dad, Bandit's standard, he just loves the effort. He values the thought behind the card and is totally unconditionally accepting of whatever she creates. Bluey is equating perfection with love, completely missing the fact that her dad's love is already guaranteed.
The real emotional breakthrough comes when Bluey's mom steps in to help her reframe this whole struggle. She reminds Bluey of how her dad constantly gets scraped knees or bumped around when they play rough games, and you know what he does? He always just brushes it off by saying, "It's a good thing you're tough." And Bluey internalizes this beautifully. She has this moment where she realizes that, yeah, drawing is tough, but it's a good thing I'm tough. She learns right then and there that resilience, effort, and bouncing back from your mistakes matter far, far more than holding yourself to some impossible standard of perfection. But hey, the show definitely doesn't paint us adults as perfect beings either. No way. Take Bandit's competitive flaw from the obstacle course episode. He races Bluey on a backyard course, but he refuses to just let her win easily, right? He wants to teach her that she has to work hard to get faster. The problem is, when Bluey actually does get faster and is literally about to beat him fair and square, Bandit's own ego completely takes over and he resorts to cheating just to maintain his victory. It's super funny, but it's also a pretty poignant reminder that adults deeply struggle with the pressure to win and the fear of losing their status, too. We all have our own toxic forms of perfectionism.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds, navigating sibling dynamics, specifically looking at the empty bedroom.
So, gaining independence is a massive milestone for anyone, like when Bluey and her sister Bingo finally decide they want to have separate bedrooms. But the excitement of independence quickly turns into the anxiety of separation, because when those lights go out, the reality of sleeping in a room completely alone finally sets in. The sisters face this deeply relatable, quiet anxiety. And to cope, they start sending their stuffed animals, specifically ones named Lumpy, Gloria, and this little guy named Malcolm, back and forth between the rooms as these comforting little messages to one another. It's such an incredibly tender illustration of how we constantly crave connection, even when we swear we just want our own space.
Now let's jump into Section 4, the parenting baby race and dealing with milestone anxiety.
This narrative right here is aimed squarely at the hearts of parents. The mother, Chili, is just overwhelmed with stress. She's constantly comparing baby Bluey's developmental milestones to this other baby named Judo. And this brilliantly illustrates the timeline of childhood development and just how completely messy it actually is in reality. See, Chili was thrilled when Bluey rolled over early. She even admits she became a bit of a show-off about it. But then, Judo started sitting up first. Then Judo crawled first. And when Bluey was supposed to crawl, she bypassed traditional crawling entirely for what the show calls bum shuffling, which is basically just scooting around on her bottom. And Chili is in an absolute panic, all because the timeline isn't perfectly linear. Because of this intense comparison trap, Chili resorts to some seriously desperate measures just to win the race. She literally tries physically forcing Bluey into a crawling position. She completely ignores the pediatrician's reassurance that, hey, some babies just bum shuffle and there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. But the desperation reaches these absurd, hilarious heights when the grandmother, Nana, decides the ultimate solution is to rub olive oil on baby Bluey's knees, to make them slippery so she's forced to walk instead. It's funny, but it perfectly captures the painfully real and often totally ridiculous lengths we will go to just to feel like we're keeping up with everyone else's highlight reels.
Then we hit the emotional climax of this entire narrative. Chili is just feeling like an utter failure because Judo has won the quote-unquote baby race by walking first. Another mom from their group, Bella, comes over to visit. Now, Chili discovers that Bella isn't her first-time mom like her. She actually has 8 kids. Bella looks at Chili, sees this intense, crushing weight of inadequacy on her shoulders, and simply says, "You're doing great." And Chili immediately bursts into happy tears. Because in a world that is just obsessed with competing, that simple validation that you are enough, that you're doing a good job, is the exact release of pressure we are all so desperate for.
Which perfectly sets up Section 5, running your own race. This is the final lesson.
So, the crucial point is that Chili finally realizes the immense emotional harm caused by all this constant comparison, and she resolves to just stop looking at what the other babies are doing. And beautifully, once that pressure is finally off, Bluey takes her very first steps right there in the kitchen. Not because she was forced to with olive oil, and not to beat Judo, but simply because she saw something she wanted and she was ready to go get it. Which brings us to the core thesis of everything we've talked about today. Life isn't a competition. We are all just learning to do things for the very first time. Whether you're a kid trying to draw a straight line, a sibling learning to sleep alone, or an adult desperately trying to figure out how to raise a human being without a manual, you really don't need to be perfect. You just need to be resilient.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought as we close out today. Whose race are you trying to run today? Are you exhausting yourself trying to keep up with some invisible standard set by someone else's timeline? Take a deep breath. Just let go of the comparison. Run your own race at your own pace. Because honestly, you're doing great.